is the ultimate travel guide from the people who know it best. Weekends with Yankee.
We start out our journey at the Norman Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, a beautiful small town in the Berkshire Hills near the New York border. It's the place Rockwell called home for 25 years, and it's where he painted some of his most iconic works, often using neighbors and friends as models for his paintings.
He would come in with the principal, and the principal would come here. I thought, I had done something terrible. And the next thing I know, my mother is telling me, your father's picking you up at school, Mr. Rockwell needs you to pose.
Today, we're here to meet up with two such models, Claire Williams and Eddie Locke, to learn more about life in Norman Rockwell's New England. Perhaps more than any other artist in the 20th century, Norman Rockwell captured America as it saw itself. And much of his inspiration came from his home, right here in Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
He entertained and engaged a nation for about 75 years, so he was an extraordinary figure. Norman Rockwell had a great gift to paint universal moments. He could find the particular story of an individual in the kinds of universal qualities that I think we all seek in our lives. Love of family and friends and community. He was very patriotic, and he taught us about American democracy, our freedoms, our civil rights and social justice. Painting was his passion and really compulsion. When Norman Rockwell moved to Stockbridge, he no longer had access to professional models for his illustrations, so he chose the people around him. He looked to the community. If he needed children for a picture, he might go to the elementary school and he'd say, I need freckles, I need red hair, and he would send a message home to the child's parent, and he would ask them to appear at his studio and be ready to come and model.
What did parents say about that? I mean,
well, they knew who Norman Rockwell was. They were thrilled. Everybody wanted to be in Norman Rockwell's pictures.
What's your earliest recollections of Norman Rockwell?
Oh, when he moved here in 1953.
Was it a big deal?
Well, I think everybody in town was anxious to see an artist. We didn't have any artists in the area at the time.
When was the first time that you met him?
When I was asked to pose for him in 1958, I got a call from Mr. Rockwell asking me to come in and model for him. So when I hung up, I said to Bob, I know exactly what I'm going to wear. And he said, what do you have to be so fussy about? I said, oh, I just do. And I just got a Lons dress, periwinkle blue, down at the shop. And he said to me, because we were on a budget, and he said, I haven't seen that dress. I said, oh, well, it's up in the closet, but it's, and it's beautiful, I said.
So you put on the periwinkle blue outfit and you walk in.
You never get to see what he was sketching or how he was going to use you, and he didn't discuss any of that with you. I know that some of my friends that posed for him would say, well, when is it coming out? And he'd say, I can't tell you, I'm working on more than one thing at a time.
Did he chat with you at all while he was sketching?
He was chatting all the time.
And how would you characterize his demeanor or his character?
Friendly, very friendly. I have some photos here that I can show you. Now know that the young girl did not pose there. Everybody came in individually. That gentleman was not there, and neither was the little girl.
Just you?
Just me.
And how old were you in this?
28. And I was paid $40 for posing for him, and I have a picture of the canceled check. Here we are.
Norman Rockwell raised 3 children. He knew what these rites of passage were like for his own family. So there's really a painting for almost every subject. Well, one of Norman Rockwell's favorite models during his years here in Stockbridge was Eddie Locke, who was about 10 years old when he was modeling for Norman Rockwell and was in 2 of Rockwell's iconic works, The Runaway, which shows the young boy running away from home and the policeman's treating him to a piece of pie at the lunch counter. And this is a piece that's just beloved by law enforcement around the country because it shows the compassionate side of policing. And Eddie's in also the doctor's office before the shot, where he's examining the doctor's credentials on the wall while the doctor's preparing to give him that dreaded injection.
So, you know, most kids have photo albums of them when they were little kids. You actually have
I have
a picture
the
of you.
ultimate.
This is the ultimate photo album.
Exactly.
I have to admit, looking at you from here, that your nose pretty much looks the same.
Well, it just proves I'd never had anything done, and yes, it is pretty much the same. The hair, I have less hair now than I did, but not by much.
So, do you remember who this was?
The state trooper was, in fact, a Massachusetts state trooper, Richard Clemens, who grew up here in Stockbridge and was Mr. Rockwell's neighbor, though he tried to claim later in life that there was a nationwide search for the handsomest state trooper in the country. He was, in fact, his neighbor. The man in the middle I never met. When we posed for this picture, we posed at a Howard Johnson's restaurant, and when this post cover came out, the trooper, Mr. Clemens, went over and asked Mr. Rockwell, why did he change it? And Mr. Rockwell told the trooper that he wanted to make it appear as if the kid had gotten further out of town. Well, I always thought the good thing about this picture is, you know, no harm is going to come to this kid.
Yeah, that's true, which is not exactly what happens in the doctor's office.
Well, no. There's
getting those needles were bigger back then.
Great peril for this young man.
Now, I have to tell you, my own kid's pediatric office, this is there, and I suspect there are thousands of these prints in doctors' offices across America.
I suspect there are. People lose sight of the fact that the kid is actually reading the Latin inscription on the diploma to make sure that his doctor is qualified to give him this shot.
And the person who played the doctor, was that indeed your doctor?
That was indeed my doctor. He was my doctor until the day he died, which, you know, he saw me through some awful stuff.
When you're standing by those particular pieces of work, what do you hear people say?
Well, they all, you know, it's flattering what you hear. You know, how cute the kid was and all the rest of it.
And so have you ever just, you know, tapped on their shoulder and said, hey, that's me?
Well, I have tapped on shoulders and I have said, isn't that kid the cutest kid you've ever seen in your life?
Has anybody ever wanted to pose with you like that?
Every so often, but I refuse to do the one in the doctor's office. That would not be a pretty sight.
He, I think, was always looking ahead. His favorite painting was always the next one. In human nature, we always hold out for hope and optimism and hope for better times, stronger times. And Norman Rockwell always focused on that hope and optimism. He knew that there were difficult things in the world. He knew during war of the atrocity and deaths and the great threat to freedom that existed, but he focused on the things we cherish and value in our everyday lives. And I think these are the things that give people hope to go on, confidence to be inspired. And all of these qualities are so very much needed today here in America and around the world.